And good morning, sports fans. Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Red River Roundup, brought to you by the Pelican Sports Report and Gridiron Football USA, and of course, our Gridiron All-American Bowl game. I am Doug Gann, and that block that you see to my right, I guess, maybe to your left. I don't know how these things work. On there is Marshall Loefller. Marshall, you're very familiar with. He is the voice of the Union Parish Farmers football team up in the northeast portion of the state. And Marshall is joining us, and we'll be here. And he'll be here by video next week, but he is on his way. I'll let him tell you all about that. But we're excited to bring you this from Jamboree Week. I still refuse to call it Week 0, but from Jamboree Week all the way to the Superdome. And so I am Doug Gann with 446 Sports, and we bring you just a vast array of high school sports throughout. But to give you a little more information about the show, I want to bring in the host of this one. It is Marshall Loefller. Marshall, welcome aboard.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me on, Doug, and thanks for all you've done with 446 Sports to bring high school sports and all kind of sports and entertainment to the state of Louisiana. We got a lot of good stuff that goes on all throughout the school year. So it's awesome to see the brand you've built and kind of the need that you filled for fans all over the state of Louisiana.
Well, we're excited about it. Thank you for those kind words. And I'm telling you, there's a lot worse things we could do on Friday nights and Thursday nights and, Tuesday nights.
You got that right.
Nights and Saturday mornings. Now, we're going to bring you this. We decided to do this. You and I talked about it and said, hey, let's get up and get people before they start moving around, before they start doing things. And so here's a great opportunity to do that. But let's tell everybody about what we've got going on this weekend.
Sure. Yeah. So I got a face for radio this morning, and that's because I am en route. I'm in the driver's seat right now, headed up to University of Louisiana at Monroe for the Bayou Jam, the second day of the Jamboree that's held every year at Malone Stadium on ULM's campus. Some of the best teams in the northern part of the state typically take place start their seasons there every year. This year's no exception. Had Ruston and Neville face off last night. Mangum played last night. They're usually a title contender in D4. So what a better way to kick off a high school football season this fall than to view some of the best that do it in our state. And we'll be doing that all day today. Kickoff's at 11, and we'll be going till way past my bedtime tonight. So we're excited to bring the Bayou Jam to football fans again this year, and I'll be on the call all day today. And some games there that have implications directly in Sinlaw and, of course, all over the state, as you'll see guys that are used to being in the Superdome or being close to it in a few months, that they'll be starting their seasons off today.
Look, and that's what I like about it. And you point to that Ruston-Neville matchup, and it's near and dear to us simply because we cover 2-5A with Alexandria primarily. And to see those two schools do battle, and they're not just out there going through the motions. They're firing away in that game.
Yeah, this was a district game this year, but last year it was not. And whether or not Ruston and Neville are in a district, they play pretty much any time that one bus can make it over to the other's campus to play. That it's a long-standing rivalry. It's as far as long as I've been covering it, always a close game, and jamborees don't count. And there's a lot that coaches will leave, on the cutting room floor after a jamboree. But a late score by Ruston, 13-10. Look, that's a win that Ruston's going to take and put in their pocket, and that's a loss that Neville's, I can tell you will use as motivation as they get going, being a part of this district now this year, kind of swapping places with West Ouachita.
See, and we'll jump back into that real quick. If you've got a comment, you're able to leave it wherever you're watching. And Clint, and this is what I like about our fans. They'll jump in and let us know. And Clint hops in and says that you're on my left. So I'll take that. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's what that comment. But Ruston and Neville joined 2-5A last year. If you'll remember, they were undefeated. Alexandria was undefeated for that big Week 10 matchup last season. So this is the second year that Neville is in 2-5A. Them and West Ouachita made the swap after last year. So
right, you're right. Yep. Thanks for correcting that.
But it doesn't take away their battles all over the place. we're going to hear, like I said, from Jace LeJeune in the Baton Rouge area. We'll hear from Chaston Tavares with that Southwest. Now they've got small sections. You're tasked with the entire north part of the state is where you're at. And so we'll visit with you about all of that. And, of course, we've got Mike McMillan out of the North Shore Prep Report. That's something he started. Now, that's a little bit of area that you're familiar with too, aren't you? The North Shore area?
Correct. Yes. I coached down there, coached basketball down there for several years. And there's a lot of schools, it's an area that's grown in the past 20 years, but a lot of schools that do a lot of sports well, not just football. But there's rivalries that take place there every fall. Some strong district play and some schools there that have found themselves in very late parts of the season. Lakeshore made it to the finals a few years ago. Mandeville had a very strong year here recently. And so and St. Paul's they've had a lot of stability in their football program, and they're typically a top team in the area, and they can go south of the lake and take on a lot of New Orleans teams too. So North Shore, South Shore, that part of the area, just like all other areas of the state of Louisiana, they do high school football really well.
Somebody that is covering it, and we're gonna get to our first guest here in just a second. Somebody that has come on, he's been covered like you, has been around the sport down there for a long, long time, but has been covering it over the last, I guess, baseball, softball is where we got introduced to Mike with his North Shore Prep Report. And I'm telling you, came on like gangbusters down in that area and has pushed it over to football and basketball and everything. So, Marshall, I don't know if you've met Mike or not before. Have you met Mike?
I have not. Yes, I've heard of Mike's work and looking forward to to partnering with him this fall to bring local sports to local sports fans.
Well, through the beauty of what is StreamYard and all world technology, we've got Mike McMillan joining us right now. You can't see him on the screen, I don't think, because you're driving. But Mike, welcome aboard, buddy.
Man, Doug, Marshall, great to be on. When I committed to this earlier in the week, I forgot how late Friday nights can be when you're covering this stuff. So we might nap during the 2:30 games today.
Yeah, hey, I'm 3 cups of coffee in, so look, we're wide open.
In full transparency, I wake up about 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning and roll out. And this morning I wake up just easily, no alarm clock. It just happens. And the wife is off today, so she doesn't wake up early. I get up and like, what time is it? She said 7:30. I'm like, oh my goodness. So
it's time to go.
0 cups. Haven't even popped the first Bloody Mary yet for the day. It's game day, none of that. So, Mike, tell us what's going on down in the North Shore and what you've seen.
Oh, Doug, it's wild. We like you said, we started this thing with baseball initially as a little hobby of mine to cover some kids that I coached, and it's absolutely blown up, and it's become more than I anticipated, but it's been really filling. We transitioned to football here in July. We covered the Crescent City Summer League with Ken Trahan, that group, for the summer, which was really good. Brother Martin ended up winning that league, so we had some South Shore teams there. And now we transitioned to football. So July's really been a really good opportunity for us to go introduce ourselves and form these relationships with coaches, which most of I knew already anyway. But I was recently talking with Coach Tucker down at Chalmette, and he said something, and I thought about it, and it sparked what Marshall said earlier. The number of programs that are run really well by really good men, really good coaches, great communities, players. It's been fantastic. I couldn't ask for more. The support for us has been great. We've got coaches who just feed us information, players who do the same. It's been a great transition, and we're glad to do it.
Marshall, being in that North Shore area, you guys come from the same, I guess, have been around that same. What are some things that you guys look for North Shore that have been constant powers? Marshall, what do you remember?
Well, St. Paul's, as I mentioned earlier, they've got, if I'm not mistaken, they've got some coaching tenure there that rivals, Notre Dame, John Curtis, some of the other, long-standing programs in the state as far as coaching staffs are concerned. I certainly have my eye on the Mandeville Skippers, as they've kind of really in all areas of their athletic program have kind of taken a step up in the past few years. It's almost an embarrassment of riches. I was there really during a period of heavy growth on the North Shore, where a lot of families were moving there. I watched Hannon and Lakeshore High School, basically start from farmland to 4A Division II, big time high school athletic programs, football being no exception. Yeah. So there's been a lot of growth in the area. There's been a lot of investment in these schools, these communities. And really, it's just like those, just like the Catholic League in New Orleans and, kind of going over to Baton Rouge, the rivalries that kind of exist right within a couple of same zip codes is, look, we want to go far in the state playoffs too, but we want to be kings of the city. We want to be kings of St. Tammany. And so that's even what Ponchatoula's done over in Tangipahoa Parish, the standard is high, and the race to the top of the top team in the North Shore seems to be a big battle each year.
Yeah, Marshall, it's interesting you say that. In the college world, it was the facility race, right? Everybody upgrading in facilities, and you kind of see that here. You get to visit these schools, and almost everyone has turf now. Field houses are upgraded, gyms, locker rooms, all of it. It really is state of the art. You touched on a couple big things in tenure. Coach Sears has seemingly been at St. Paul's forever. When I talked to him, we talked about, my playing days at Destrehan in the mid 90s. So he's been around for a long time. You touched on Mandeville a little bit. Coach Jones, who brought those Lakeshore teams deep, won to a state championship runner-up one year. He's at Mandeville now. They're an intriguing one this year. They had Nate Shepard last year, who I thought was best running back in the state. He ended up at Duke. He got some playing time on Thursday night and did what he does really well. So that'll be interesting. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Coach Tucker over at Chalmette. There was a redistricting 2 years ago where the North Shore kind of got split in half. Mandeville and Fontainebleau, who are a few miles apart, are in two different districts. Chalmette, who's kind of southeast of us, is in the district with some Slidell teams and Fontainebleau as well. So it's a very new dynamic for them. I do think you're right, in kind of the players in it, St. Paul's, Mandeville, some of that stuff. But, doing the preseason coverage, there have been some really eye-opening schools that I think are really going to rise. I talk about Coach Salter at Covington. They are absolutely loaded. He's been there a long time. He's a legacy. His grandfather was a coach there, and they do a tremendous job. They've got great facilities. They've got 3 or 4, and I mean big time Division I prospects. One, Jawan Brock, wide receiver, he's committed to Texas State. He might be one of the best receivers in the state. We got to see, and I'll jump to the South Shore here real quick because this will be a name you guys will hear over and over again. But they scrimmaged Brother Martin last week at Easton Royal, 5-star wide receiver. Did what he does. He's just absolutely dynamic. And then I get home last night and he's returning kicks for touchdowns, and there's a ton of talent, that's for sure.
And kind of speaking.
No, go ahead, Marshall.
I was going to mention, speaking of longevity, the school where I've spent many great years coaching, North Lake Christian, James Willis was able to go there and after a little bit of turnover in that program, really set up camp there for a few years and establish a program and kind of bring them from a 5-5, 6-4 team to a team that could potentially make some noise in Division III Select, where you go up against Dunham and Newman and schools like that. So really a chance for North Lake Christian to make their mark in their playoff bracket.
Yeah, Marshall, I'm glad you brought them up. I haven't been able to make this public yet, but I joined Coach Willis's staff here recently. So, so my Fridays and my football season have gotten a little more crazy and chaos. So I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm definitely putting a lot more time in than I anticipated. And I can touch on those guys. We played at Pine last night, which I want to cover District 7-4A a little bit because and Pine's not in that district, but it's important to mention them. But at Northlake, Coach Willis is he's a great leader of young men. That's a very unique school to coach at, to administer at. They have a lot of talent at that level. They lost in round 2 last year to Catholic New Iberia in a game that was much closer than the score, and they returned pretty much everything that they would have back, with the exception of their quarterback. They had a transfer come in from St. Stanislaus. They've got a senior quarterback that both those guys are playing a little bit. Cameron Casnave, probably heard of him. He's a 4-year starter. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards every season. He's poised for another year. He's actually playing a little linebacker now too, which might be what he does at the next level. And then, Coach Willis' son, Jordan Willis, he's a defensive back, wide receiver, kind of do everything. Yeah. He's a big kid. He's 6'2", 190 pounds, and he can fly. They've got everything they need. We talk about ingredients a lot, and it takes everything to go well. And the one thing you don't control is the luck part, but they've got the ingredients to certainly make a deep run. And what Coach Willis has done there at Northlake is nothing short of a miracle. And I kind of say the same thing about some other schools. Coach Soper at Hannon, they're building numbers up. That's a unique place. I know you mentioned Hannon. They've got, I don't know, they've got maybe 800 students that put them in 4A, but 200 are boys, which doesn't help with the football program, right? But Coach Soper's built that up, and he's doubled his numbers in football over the last 2 years. He's going into year 3 now. They had a win last night against Country Day. And they open week 1 at home against Northlake Christian, which is a big rivalry there. So that'll be interesting. Another really unique one that I think about all the time. Talk about District 7-4A. Franklinton goes to the state championship last year, loses to Cecilia, which you guys know well. Cecilia somehow is 18 seed going into that playoff, and everybody's going, no way. We don't want to play 18 seed Cecilia, right? And they showed why in the state championship. That was one of the more exciting state championships I've seen in decades. That game was absolutely bonkers and wild. But they're in a district with Lakeshore. Coach Indest, who came from Southwest Louisiana, is now at Lakeshore. I get to go, attend some practices over there and see those guys. I don't know that anybody prepares better than Coach Indest in that group. They're very organized. He gets what he wants. They run a really unique offense. They initially ran a wing tee, and now they run some shotgun stuff with wing tee concepts out of it. It'll cause absolute chaos for defenses. They're in the same district with Laranja, Pearl River, and Hannon's in that district. Laranja is an interesting one. Coach Powell just took over there. Coach Sam Messina, who was there for a very long time, just left to be the athletic director and head coach at Independence. Laranja's got one of the best running backs in the state in Ryland Jones. He'll be a junior this year. He scored 3 touchdowns on Friday night, in 3 plays that he shouldn't have scored touchdowns on. So he's crazy. And then in District 9 2A up here, we talked about Northlake, but Coach Pygott has done a really good job at Pope John Paul, getting that program up. They made a little run last year. They lose some guys, but he's building the program. And I have to mention St. Helena. I don't know that there's a more talented team in 9 2A on the outside. I mean, they get off the bus and they'll scare you. So they lost a couple 1-point games last year, including Northlake. They can go compete with anybody. Top to bottom, just the amount of talent in the area and coaching it's a lot more than I knew. I was a South Shore guy. I went to high school down there. I've been up here for about 20 years, but I've been really impressed with the high level of football and consistency up here.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing about it each and every Saturday morning. Now, with you taking on that coaching job, I don't know how you keep up with everything that you're going to do, but we look forward to having a report from you on the North Shore, the South Shore, all of that area that's down there as everybody makes their way. We'll actually be down in Destrehan on week 3 is where we'll be. So excited to get down there. Not excited to drive back and then turn around and do this on Saturday morning. But we're delighted to be down there. Mike,
and Doug, they've got a really, really big one next week. Their opening games at Catholic in Baton Rouge. That's a battle of two teams with Division I talent all over the place. That'll be a really good one. Destrehan returns their quarterback. They've got, I don't know. I feel like they've got 33 wide receivers that can play at the next level.
Anybody.
Yes. Yes.
You hate to be cliche and say they've got a ton of weapons, but that indeed they do.
Yeah, and Coach, I have to give Coach Robichaux credit. He did a phenomenal job there for years and years and years. And, Coach Scott came in and he wasn't a Destrehan guy, and he's really elevated that program to a whole new level. From a talent perspective. We
were able to visit with him last year prior to the game, and then stopped by and talked to him post game on there. They had some injuries leading into that one, but they're looking forward to a big game. They just have big game week after week after week.
Yeah, when you're on the South Shore, that's kind of what happens. There's a few really good ones next week. John Curtis is traveling to California. They're making a trip out there, which is going to be great. Cars playing Shaw. Right. Coach Tierney's always going to have his group ready. They got beat up a little bit last night by St. Aug, but the Catholic League is just I don't know how those guys are going to do it. I mean, John Curtis last year, you'd say they had an off regular season. I think they went 6-4. They go make a deep run in the playoffs. I mean, I wouldn't want to play in the Catholic League right now. Carr and Warren Easton joining those guys. Rummel, Jesuit. It's absolutely bonkers what they have to go through week in and week out.
Well, Mike, it was great hearing from you this morning. We look forward to your 8-10 time slot each and every Saturday morning, my friend. Go out there and get you some rest, get you some coffee, and get back up and watch some football today.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Marshall. I appreciate you having us, and I look forward to being part of the team.
Yep, Mike. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, Marshall, that was your first look at Mike McMillan and his thoughts. Just a wealth of knowledge, and I think he's very similar to you and I both. He's going to take on anything that he can, and that was great news with him picking up the coaching job that he's got there. So coming up next is going to be Chaston Tavares. Chaston is out of the Lake Charles area is where he's at. Folks around are very familiar with Chaston as well. Chaston actually is going to be on the call tonight for McNeese and Louisiana Christian University, Marshall.
Oh, great. Wow. So LCU will start off with an FCS opponent. That'll be great for Coach McLaughlin and that group as they go into. I know I've followed a lot of work you've done kind of with training camp and getting ready for the Wildcats season opener.
Yeah, they're excited about it. There's no doubt about it, and we'll visit with him some about that with the work that he's doing. He had a big game last night. I know. Just see a lot of great things from Chaston on what he is doing. But thoughts on that North Shore area real quick and that Catholic League before we jump into the Southwest part of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's you go through that Catholic League and there's as many schools that you leave out, mentioning just how deep that league is. It tends to change every few years. A school will exit or enter as they as districts change. But look, I mean, watch any major college football game today, chances are there'll be a Catholic League grad on that roster somewhere. And in about 8 days, when you're doing the same thing on Sunday, watching NFL games, you will also find plenty of Catholic League student athletes that have made their way to the NFL. So there's no secret what that part of the state does for high school football. And like I mentioned, and kind of like Mike mentioned as well, as the North Shore has grown, as those schools have grown, as the traditions and athletic programs have grown over the past, 20 years, really since Katrina, the competition on the north side of the lake is fierce. There's a lot of pride, and there's a lot of schools. So it makes for a great league. It makes for a great district schedule, and it makes for, a great fall football season, kind of seeing, where these schools end up when it comes time for the playoffs.
Indeed it does. And speaking of a great fall season, there's nobody that covers more of it down in the southwest portion of the state than our man Chaston Tavares. Chaston, welcome aboard.
Hey, good morning, fellas. How are you guys?
Doing wonderful. I don't know if you two guys have met. We'll make our introductions here too. To my left, there's Marshall Loefller. Marshall is the host of the Union Parish. He's a play-by-play voice of the Union Parish Farmers. Chaston has a game of the week each week, and man, you guys cover both sides of the state pretty well. So welcome aboard.
Yeah, appreciate you guys for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Good morning, Chaston. Good to talk
Good morning.
to you.
Yes, sir.
Now, he'll be back, Chaston, next week. He is on his way to the Bayou Jam, so he's just that little radio icon and voice up there today. But he'll cover all 5 Bayou Jam games today. So
Awesome.
Should be
Good luck to your voice.
So
Yeah, I'm hydrating already. Yep.
Look, you guys had a big one this weekend. Tell us, Chaston, for those not familiar with you, though, a little bit about you before we get going.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been doing radio now for this will be my 9th year being involved with high school football. This is my 5th year doing the play-by-play side of it. And I started off in Leesville. We covered we did a game of the week down there in Vernon Parish, and a couple of years ago I moved down here to Southwest Louisiana. And when I got here, I was like, hey, look, we needed to do a there was no football on the radio. It's almost like a dying thing. Not everybody's kind of going to the digital side.
Yeah.
But there was nobody who covered it, in the Southwest Louisiana area. So we were able to put it together. This will be our 3rd year doing our game of the week, and this year we've added a high school football show, which we're extremely excited about. They're live at Walk-Ons every Wednesday night. So we're excited. We've already announced our week 1 game, and we're ready to get off and rocking and rolling.
So tell us then, who is that week 1 game?
Yeah, our week 1 game, we're gonna be taking the trip to Jennings. It's Iowa and Jennings, one of the biggest games in the state to start off week 1, and I'm super excited about it. I got to watch the game last year because it got moved up to a Thursday, and they played at Sam Houston, which is right down the road from me. So I was able to check that game out, and it was awesome. Iowa kind of dominated it there in the beginning, but when you talk about consistency in programs, there's not. There, you can't talk about 2 more consistent programs over the last couple of years than Iowa and Jennings here in Southwest Louisiana area.
All right, give us a little thought about how you schedule your games. Are you scheduled out 4 or 5 games? Or are you looking at it week to week? What are you doing?
I'm going to put you this way, and my philosophy is kind of changing this year now that we're adding a show that's got fan participation and so on. But in the past, I mean, I'll tell you, I'll put together a schedule every year. Before the year starts, we've got a schedule. Now, by about week 4, that thing changes and it's week by week, and we don't even look at the old schedule, just because, in my opinion, we want to have the best matchup that we can possibly find. I mean, we want to cover as many teams as possible, but on the other hand, you got to keep the integrity of the game of the week, and we certainly try to do that. And I think we have been able to do that over the last couple of years. This year, we're trying to pick it, week by week. That way, we're a couple of weeks in advance. That way, we're giving our coaches a heads up, because that's one of the big things with our new Pigskin preview show. Is that way we can have both coaches, both sides of our game of the week that week live on set for our game of the week there, or for our Pigskin preview there at Walk-On. So changed it up a little bit this year, but I think we'll still be able to keep that integrity of the game of the week.
And that's what they call it, that flex game in the NFL, when they move that around to get who's going to be there. But tell you the highlight of it, because we're starting week 7 at Walk-Ons. You're going to love that part of the show. That's we've always had a blast out at Walk-Ons, and I don't think we'd have a week of football without my helpers right here that you see. But without a trip to Walk-Ons. So we're at Walk-Ons on Thursday nights, not the same one, the one here in Alexandria,
right,
of course. But any good advertiser, someone that's doing a show seeking advertising, go to a restaurant and find them. You'll eat well, you'll have a great time, and the fans are able to come out and be a part of it in the studio audience, and that's what's really so cool about it.
Yeah, no, look, we're super excited about it. We ever since I got down here, everybody's like, "Hey, we need a sports show." Every region in the Southwest or in the state has a football show.
Right.
except Southwest Louisiana. They're taken in from out of towners and so on and so forth, which is all fine and dandy, but nobody knows the area like people from this area. And so, it's actually kind of funny because we talked about, starting this show, and we were just going to take it easy for the first year because this is the first year of the show, and we were going to take it easy. And then I was actually talking to my buddy who's the general manager at the Walk-Ons here in Lake Charles, and he was like, "Heck no, let's start it this year." And the cool thing about this show is what we're also going to do is so, like, for instance, Iowa and Jennings, which I've already been told is going to be a packed house coming up on Wednesday night, so I'm super excited about that. But some portion of the proceeds from the patio that night, Walk-On is actually going to donate a portion to split between the two schools as a little bit of a fundraiser, and that also helps some of the fan bases to also come out and to hear what their coaches have to say and so on.
Look, that Southwest portion of the state, just a fertile area of all sports, not just football. The history in baseball and basketball and everything that it's got. We'll actually have a group over there at Sam Houston in week 2 as we bring our Turlings Catholic Rebels over there to face Sam Houston. So what we're excited about is bringing information from all around the state. And Chaston, we couldn't thought of anyone better to have in there. Who have you seen so far, maybe in fall camp, maybe in the jamborees, that says, this is somebody that we ought to look at?
I haven't gotten to watch a ton of jamboree action this week, just because this week is it's been a lot. But I will tell you, I am. There's a couple of teams I'm really excited to see from this area, and it's Hamilton Christian. Obviously, they had the best year they've had, in quite some time, maybe even ever. Last year, making it to the second round of the playoffs. They've got the best talent in the area in Javon Vital. The guy is an absolute freak of nature. He's a freak athlete. He's awesome. I'm excited about LCCP. I think Lake Charles College Prep with Dylan Vital may have opportunities to do some things. Obviously, I think their first week is like Westgate, Barb, and they've got some tough road trips, as they typically do. To start the year. But that's another team who's been to the quarterfinals, I think, every year for the last 4 or 5 years. I think they've got a real chance to have a little bit of a run at the Dome. I wouldn't be shocked in that case. I'll be curious to see how Barb does. I think they've got the talent, especially on the offensive side of the football. That's going to be one of the biggest teams I'm kind of watching just to see what they can do. And I think I might have a chance to see them week 2 when they take on LCCP. So I could be excited about that one as well. There's obviously Iowa and Jennings. We're going to get our first really look at them coming up on Friday night. Both of them kind of dominated their scrimmages. Westlake's another one that's interesting for me. Just because they do have guys on the offensive side of the football, not a ton of numbers, but they do have guys on that side of the football, and kind of a tough district there with Jennings and South Beauregard and so on and so forth. Kinder's another team that I think is good. I'm very high on with Coach Justin Reed in his 3rd year. Their quarterback Isaiah Thomas, he is also another one of those freak of natures. It's just a young kid. So many juniors at quarterbacks this year that are going to be really good in their 2nd and 3rd year starting. And obviously we're excited about this year, but just to wait to see those guys in another year as their senior year comes.
Look, that 27 class of quarterbacks is really phenomenal. You mentioned Hamilton Christian. We'd be remiss anytime there's a Hamilton Christian mention to not talk about Coach Dexter Washington, who is the do-all and be-all there, and just bleeds Hamilton Christian.
It's so funny. So I have actually been able to grow a little bit more of a relationship with Hamilton Christian, and I've known Dexter for a long time. So they reached out. I was doing a couple of years ago. I was doing the emceeing on the court for McNeese basketball games in Wade's first year, and their principal in Washington and coach they came over. They were like, "Hey, we really would like you to MC some of our pep rallies." And I was like, "Well, I don't know if I've MC'd a pep rally before, but I'll do it." And ever since then, I thoroughly enjoy going out there. I've been able to grow relationships, and I get to hang out with Coach Dex a little more. And we were able to broadcast their that first playoff win last year, where in that ridiculous game, I think the video of Javon Vital in that game went viral when he we broke every tackler on the on the football field. So look, Dexter, he is a stand-up guy. He's certainly a character. I'll put it that way.
Indeed, he is. Javon Vital, certainly one of those that he was high on, brought him to the media days for the Gridiron Football USA. And, of course, we'll hear from Jace here in a little while. But excited to hear reports from you on Saturday mornings about the Friday night games. Your big Iowa Jennings game that's coming up is one that we'll certainly look to recap next Saturday morning. So, Chaston, we appreciate you being a part of this season. I know you've got to go get ready for that little tussle with McNeese and LCU tonight. So looking forward to hearing you. Where can folks hear that or see that game?
It's going to be on ESPN Plus tonight. Myself and Jeff Palermo will have all the action, which super excited. Year 2 with Jeff, and in the press box. The last couple of years we've been on the hill there and there's no tougher place to call than in the corner of the end zone, the southwest corner of the end zone at a college football game. So super excited. Back in the press box. It's going to be a big night in Lake Charles. I'm excited about it.
There you go. What's the chance LCU pulls the upset tonight?
I don't know if we're gonna. I don't know if we can get into that one, but
That's right. You'll take that.
These games, I will tell you, these games are always tricky. I was talking to Coach Viator a couple of days ago, and he had a scare with Henderson State, I think in 2009. Where they were just able to squeak out a win against Henderson State, and then the next week they go to Appalachian and beat the #1 FCS team in the country. So these games can be very interesting. I think there's still a lot of question marks for LCU, but on the other hand, there's still a lot of question marks. Both teams are playing with a ton of young kids, so we'll see. As long as the rain holds off, I'm a-okay.
Yeah, but you're not on the hill, so it'll make it a little bit better. Chaston Tavares, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next Saturday morning.
Thanks, guys. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Chaston.
Where'd you go? Let's get there you go. I got you back, Marshall. I'm pushing the button that makes it difficult to get everything around. I've got you there now. Chaston, just a wealth of knowledge out of that Southwest Louisiana portion of it, and we're excited to have him on board.
Yeah, I had a chance to cover the quarterfinal game between Union and Kinder last year on Black Friday. Great atmosphere down at Kinder High School. They packed the stadiums. They had it. They were tailgating all day long. It was a wonderful atmosphere. Great place to watch a quarterfinal game. And another team covering I covered Haynesville, the Golden Tornado, for a few years. The Welsh Greyhounds were a school that was always a force to be reckoned with in that playoff bracket. So all the way down from 5A to 1A. And like I mentioned, part of the state that you and I maybe not have seen as many games down in that area code as other parts of the state, but no exception. A lot of good football down there too, and a lot of teams that have found themselves deep in the playoffs throughout the LHSAA season.
That and the thing is with these, you hear all about the St. Thomas Moors and the Acadianas and the Airlines and Birds and Nevilles and Rustons and John Curtis's and all those bigs, but you start diving down deeper into the Ioways and Kinder. There's a lot Kinder in that district with Menard this year, so we'll see them in one of our 446 sports games. There's a lot of great football that's flying under the radar that is not getting the publicity that it needs, and hopefully we're able to bring that out this year.
Yeah, and really to your point, I almost mentioned that, LCU versus McNeese State today. The casual fan would look at NAIA versus Southland Conference and say, well, sure, I would imagine the Cowboys have the edge there. But the fact is, both of those rosters are full of guys that played against each other just a few years ago in some of these high schools around here. So I guarantee you there's a lot of Wildcat players that are not scared in the least of some of the players that they know on McNeese's roster. So, these, like I said, you may see it as a disparity, but these are all guys that have grown up playing football, a lot of them in Louisiana. So those kind of matchups bring themselves to the college level, and who knows what happens. A lot of Wildcat players will be eager to get a shot at some of their old rivals today, I bet.
Well, and they play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because there's not much that separates someone from going to a Division I school and somebody maybe that doesn't get that look.
Absolutely right.
And they may have lined up across from each other on Friday nights and said, look, I've played with you for the last 4 or 5 years now. And I'll tell you, that intensity is on the side of the Wildcats. We've spent a lot of time with them this year. Of course, we won't have them tonight. We'll leave that to the ESPN Plus broadcast. So tune in and watch it there. But the rest of the season, we'll be carrying LCU football on 446 Sports. So we're delighted about that. We're anxious to follow and see that game tonight. Of course, it's going at the same time as another little bit of a tussle out in South Carolina's going on between LSU and Clemson, which should be a good one. But this isn't a college football show, so we'll hop away from that. Coming up is going to be Jace LeJeune. I don't know, Marshall, do you have any workings with Jace?
No, just a fan, one of his many fans.
Well, you talk about a wealth of knowledge that jumps from the high school to college. He's a beat writer for LSU, covers the wealth, was the voice of Catholic Baton Rouge radio last year. And so we'll hear what he has going on. But I know he and Andy have been hard at work putting that Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game together. They are our title sponsor here in this one, too. So big thanks out to Andy and Jace. And that's not why we got Jace on the show. Jace is here because of wealth of knowledge. And I say that tongue-in-cheekly because he's going to be listening on there. But you know what I need to look at from you is that northwest side of the state. You cover all of I-20. I know you have familiarity with it. That 158 district is phenomenal with the airlines and Evangel and Bird and those guys.
Yeah, and there's been it will be very interesting to see kind of who was king of the mountain there this year. There's been some turnover there. Airline, they've had Coach Scogan has been in place for a while, but they lose Ben Taylor, who was kind of a top 10 passer and the history of the state of Louisiana. One game that I will one of the games I'm looking forward to immensely tonight is Evangel, and I wouldn't call myself an Eagles fan, but got a chance to watch Peyton Houston last year, and I have been eager to see him play ever since. He is an absolute problem for defensive linemen. And he put on a show in the Bayou Jam last year. Of course, had a game against Captain Shreve where he was 700-800 pass yards last year. He's back. He's not going to take a step back, in my opinion. So that's going to be a really tough district. Bird looked good in their preseason scrimmage. So you've got just a never-ending and really not just in that district, but really in that part of the state last year between Luke Delafield, Abram Wardell, Ben Taylor, and Pop Houston, and the list goes on. Some of the best quarterbacking in the state was up in that area last year. Loyola, Bryce Restovich is a really good quarterback that'll be under center for the Flyers this year. So take your pick as far as the offense goes, whether it's Bird running the ball or Evangel chucking it all over the yard. Take your pick as far as offensive talent goes from that part of the state. And, I'm very curious to see kind of how that will North DeSoto will they be able to return that? They lost their top receiver, but they returned Delafield. Same thing with Airline. Airline brings back Kenny Darby, who I believe is an LSU commit. But, how will that offense look that was routinely putting up 40, 50 points? So a lot of offense up there. That's kind of been the calling card of the Shreveport-Bossier area. But it will be very interesting to see what comes out of there. I think, if I remember, Huntington upset Evangel a couple years ago. So anything can happen. Usually anything does happen, and there'll be some great Friday night matchups here coming up in the Shreveport-Bossier area.
Look, you hit on so many good points here. North DeSoto and Coach Dennis Dunn will certainly be a force no matter who's at receiver. He will groom receivers. I don't care what you're doing on there. Dennis Dunn will take care of that. You talked about Ben Taylor from Airline, who is on the roster at Natchitoches now in Northwestern State. He's I guess their third quarterback listed is where he's at. They've got a lot of great receivers, so expect some big things from him along the way too. Evangel's Pop Houston. the one thing that I've heard about, he chunks it all over the place and is very mobile. The one thing, kid throws for 700-800 yards. The one thing that probably may have been something he had to work on was his accuracy, and he worked on that. And everything I've heard about that is he's just is spot on this year, and looking forward to seeing this Evangel team play all year long as well. So there is just a wealth of football talent up in that, and trying to get my door closed on there too. There's such a wealth of football all throughout the state, and we get settled into our own part of the state. And Chaston does with his, and Mike does on the North Shore, and up on I-20. Man, that's what this show is about, is bringing everybody together on it and hearing on all parts of the state.
Yeah, that's, and when you and I first talked about this show, it's that's what makes it such a fun league. Is with college football, you may have a handful of teams that you think are real contenders for that college football playoff championship, but here in LHSA, first of all, we've got 8 brackets, so you've got a lot of schools that have reasons to to fight to the end, but there's just so many good programs. There's so many good players, so many good coaches, and that makes for a great league. It makes for kind of a anything goes type of playoff bracket. But what we want to do with this show is make it easier for the fans to follow. We're are both Sinlaw guys, and we got a lot of love for this area. But if you're a fan of a Sinlaw school, you would be greatly benefited by understanding what's going on around the state. Let's say you're a Trojan fan and you're dying to see if they can get back to the Dome in December. Well, there's teams from all over, from 4 or 5 different area codes, that at any given week they might face Ash in the next round. So if that's something that we can do and have our fans ready, prepared for those games, and kind of understand, look, all right, we know who the Trojans are. We know who the Gina Giants are. We know who the Bunkie Panthers are. But what about some of those other teams in their district that we may want to be prepared for? And then, where have those teams played in the non-district schedule? Who do they play against? What does that mean? How can you look at a loss against Calvary or a win against Warren Easton? And, what does that mean for your local team? So that's a huge goal that I have for this show, is just make the LHSA easy for any fan to follow, for any family to follow. It's you and I, we're all over the place on Friday, so we've got a little bit of insight as to what took place the night before, or maybe it was a Thursday game. But so if that's something that we can put together, summarize, maybe give our our half-witted opinions, then that's something that we want to bring to families, fans, and all kind of supporters in our areas. It's such a great league to follow. It's so much fun to try to keep track of it all, and we're happy to try to bring that to the 446 family this fall.
You're absolutely right, Marshall. Thank you very much for that. And somebody that's going to help us do that from everywhere across the state. We're calling him our Baton Rouge expert, but this man puts more miles on his vehicle, I think, than you and I combined, Marshall, and that is Jace LeJeune of Gridiron Football USA. Jace, welcome aboard, my friend.
Absolutely, Doug. Marshall, thank you for having me. We're getting right to it. I know we just had Jamboree action this past weekend, so yeah, we're getting right into the real thing next week, week 1. Really excited about it, and it's great to have football back this fall.
Look, one thing about you, Jace, is that not only are you seeing the teams that you cover, but with Gridiron side of it, you guys are working on your invitees to the bowl game the end of the year, which is in probably year 7 or 8 now. So you're seeing folks from all over the state. These individuals, who are some of those that maybe you're looking at that are jumping out to you early on?
Yeah, I mean, really early on, I think this is going to be really a good year for quarterbacks so far. Like you saw, we had a Gridiron Football Media Day a couple of weeks ago. If you go to our social media channels and our YouTube channel right now, you can see a lot of those interviews with a lot of those teams, and we're inviting a lot of kids from that media day. But there are a lot of guys that really stand out. I mean, one guy to really look at in the Baton Rouge area I think it's really a big time sleeper in terms of quarterbacks is Jerry Botley. He's a quarterback from Southern Lab. He's actually committed to play for Deshaun Jackson and Delaware State, and he's a big time player, and he's a really a guy that has the chance to lead the Kittens to back to the state championship and get back to where the Kittens want to be. Obviously, there's a really, just great talent just across the board, all across Louisiana. No matter where you go, you can go. Obviously, New Orleans is known for a lot of great talent. Baton Rouge, where I reside, there's a lot of great talent there. North Louisiana too. We have a lot of camps we host in the off season to try to invite a lot of players to play in our bowl game, and the talent is evident everywhere you go.
So your Friday nights now, tell us about that. I think we're on the call for Catholic last year. Where will you be on Friday nights this year?
Yeah, so basically I call the games for Episcopal High School. They're a 2A team in Baton Rouge, one of the more premier private school teams in Baton Rouge. If you remember from a Gridiron Football American Bowl game a couple years ago, Braden George, who happened to be the MVP of that game, I called his high school game. So I was used to seeing that every single Friday night. I know Braden's doing his thing at Navy. But basically, the Episcopal Knights going to another year. They've been one of the more consistent teams. 8 straight quarterfinal appearances for Travis Bourgeois, who actually been the longest tenured head coach in the Baton Rouge area. He's been there for over 20 years. So it's just a mile of consistency each and every single year. One of their players, he's actually been invited to play in their Gridiron Football All-American Bowl game this year, kind of like Braden, Taj Callahan. Keep an eye on Taj. He's got a couple of offers so far from Temple and Omar. Was a standout in our camp this offseason, and kind of like Braden, started his career on defense, and now he's the featured running back. So similar size, about 6 foot, 190 pounds, can run a 4.5, 4.4 40. So he's going to be really dangerous this year for the Knights, but looking forward to that. And last year, I got a chance to call a couple Catholic High games. I was really excited last year about calling the semifinal game last year between Catholic and the Car, which a lot of people thought was really the de facto state championship.
And that may be why I keep saying that you and we don't think it was the de facto state championship by any means. You got to get there to get there. So let's do that.
Exactly.
But that's what confused me about you and Catholic. But nobody here in Central Louisiana calls that the de facto
I bet not.
championship game.
And Ash had a great year, and last year, what year Coach Bachman and the Trojans had last year, going undefeated, especially in that district. I still think everybody talks about the Catholic Zachary Central District and obviously the Catholic League, but nobody gives that district, North Louisiana, not credit where it's due. The credit where it's due. And there's a lot of great teams up there. Anytime you get undefeated in a district that has West Monroe and Neville and Ruston, it's a gauntlet every single week.
Yeah.
What Ash did last year was really impressive.
Look, and from Marshall's point of it too, that football up in that northeast side and their Union Parish that he calls made a lot of football there. So, all of us have opportunities to get to the Dome and to watch a lot of great football. Marshall, your take on what it takes for teams to really put all that together and get to the Dome?
Well, so really what all year long last year, what I thought it took to get to the Dome was pretty much what the Ruston Bearcats had done all season long, getting through that district the way they did, going all over, not just the state, but having to go to Texas and Arkansas, just to find opponents, that were suitable for them in the non-district schedule. And then, so to answer your question, Doug, if you ask me what a championship team looks like, I would tell you the Ruston Bearcats until they kicked off against Central last fall in one of the, a game that just had my jaw on the floor with what Central was able to do. And along with Elijah Haven out of Dunham, that's something that I've got my eyes on. I know they share, some playoff bracket and district play with Episcopal. But what Central was able to do, not only in football but basketball as well, and I know I believe, Doug, that Max Gassett is down on that roster too these days. So, Jace, if you can, I'm still just floored with what Central was able to do last year throughout the playoffs, and I'm dying to know if that's something that they can back up again this fall.
Oh yeah, they're the real deal. What David Semino did in his first, really his second year, it's incredible. I think a lot of people knew what kind of coach David Semino is and what he could bring. I think a lot of people were surprised how quickly he was going to come. And really, be honest with you, there weren't a lot of people that picked Central to win.
Nope, no way.
To win it like that. That was as shocked as I ever been covering a state championship game in the Dome. But you gotta give credit to Central, and they're ready.
Absolutely.
Last night, Central really put a statement. They actually, I think they defeated East Ascension like 34-7. And
that's a shocker because that East Ascension team is built to win.
Right. And you talk about not only what they are on the line of scrimmage. Bryson Martinez, he's the LSU commit. Right. And they're actually going to move him to tight end. Try to imagine trying to tackle him with the football in his hands. But that all-star coaching staff that Broughton III brought in, as well as the East Ascension, that was a really shocking score. And that district is going to be fun to watch. Keep in mind, Central won the state championship last year, and Catholic was actually the district champions. They defeated Central. and you also say, hey, there's Zachary over there too. So
right, Coach Brew in that group,
scrub. So I know David Brewerton and the Broncos have something to say about it this year. So that district is very top heavy, probably as top heavy as any district throughout the state of Louisiana.
Look, Marshall brought up a great point about Ruston having to go and play teams from Texas and all around.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing teams, that little tussle in the Superdome coming up on September the 12th is huge, but you're seeing teams now from Louisiana that are going across the country to play teams just because Louisiana's finally getting that recognition.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And that's going to be a huge game. The game that you mentioned was Endicott and American Heritage in the Superdome. That's going to be a great matchup. And a Louisiana powerhouse against a Florida powerhouse. That's going to be great to see. And U-High and Rummel, even though those are two local teams in Louisiana, that's going to be fun to watch. I know that we talked about a little bit about Elijah Haven and Dunham. That U-High team beat Dunham in the Jamboree 27-12.
Wow.
2 scores. So U-High is hungry. They went to our media day as well earlier this offseason. And I don't think there's a team that's more motivated and hungrier to get back to the football field than U-High. If you remember what happened to them last year, not being able to play in the playoffs. And they are hungry. They got 2 great running backs. I did a little article about that on our website, gridironfootballusa.com, and Sage Ingram and Corbin Odell. They're definitely going to be a deadly 1-2 punch, and everybody knows about Lamar Brown and the offensive line as well. So, U-High, they got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, and they're going to be a scary team. When you make the combination of a team that's motivated and hungry, along with just exuberantly talented, oh boy, watch out for the Cubs this year.
Look, it's going to be a lot of fun this season. That's why we wanted to take and put this show together. And like these kids are going today, just get that seatbelt and strap in. It is time to get going. We'll all be back next Saturday morning at this time, our same usual time slots, and we'll have updates from the games. And don't tell anybody the jamborees don't count, but I think so. You got the 7v7, and the jamborees come in and say, get out of here with all of that. And everybody's excited about the jamborees. But now here comes week 1, the big brother of it all. And our drive for the Dome starts right here. Looking forward to seeing all of our teams down there in New Orleans, December 13th and around that weekend. I know Jace, I know Marshall, you guys will be covering down there as well. So looking forward to a great season of sitting around on Saturday mornings talking about football. What better way is there?
I don't think there's anything
You're
better.
dang right.
There you go. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up right here. You get to be our cleanup hitter in T-ball. They would call out last batter, and that was you today, Jace. We appreciate it. Marshall, be safe going up there. You've got 5 games to call on the Bayou Jam. We look forward to your reports on that. That's going to be a lot of fun. From a man on my left there, Marshall and Jace and Chaston and Mike that made it a part of this very first Red River Roundup show. Guys, thank you all for being a part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug and Marshall.
Yep.
Looking forward to a great season.
Yeah,
Right.
You too, Jace. Can't wait.
We'll see you guys next week on the Red River Roundup. Thanks for watching.